All right, everyone, let's continue on now with the notes for Chapter 6, concluding the notes with this video covering Sections 2 and 3. Talking about audio and video on the web now and the developments of how that has happened and how it's impacted us. So the development of new data encoding formats. Data encoding formats like MP3 for audio files, also MP4 for video, the growing availability of high-speed broadband connections, everything from DSL lines to fiber optics to your cable internet, all that made it so that audio files could be downloaded rather quickly, as opposed to the slow dial-up connections where the connection was so slow that audio and video would either take a long time for it to process so that you can consume or just make it prohibitive altogether. By 1996, about 1 million people were listening to internet radio. By 98, there were about 1,700 radio stations on the internet. After the introduction of the iPad and iTunes in 2001, a couple years later, Adam Curry hit on the idea of syndicating audio programs that could be downloaded directly to a person's iPod. And he is still podcasting today, by the way. If Adam Curry sounds familiar to you and you don't know him from podcasting, you might have heard that he was one of the VJs, the video jocks, on MTV back when MTV still showed music videos. Anyway, so this basically started what we've come to know today as podcasting. Now, kind of related to podcasting is streaming. This is where a web user does not have to wait to download a file to play it, where media are sent in a continuous stream of data and played as the media arrive. This is where the Flash format for video really helped internet TV explode. Flash starting to go away in favor of other protocols now, but basically it's that idea of not necessarily having to wait until you've downloaded the entire file and it's sitting on your computer in order for you to play a file that you can kind of play as you are downloading. In 2006, Lonely Girl 15 premiered on YouTube, proving that web-based series produced by an amateur could generate huge interest, and we know how big YouTube is now today. Let's go back to online radio stations and talk about 4 different types that you may encounter. First off, broadcast radio stations that provide online content, and they may do this either as a true 100% simulcast of their terrestrial radio signal. So if you turn on the radio and listen into your favorite station, you get the exact same content as what you would if you're listening to the online stream. A lot of times what's happening these days is that they will provide the same programming, but the commercials might be a little different from what you hear on the actual radio versus what you hear on the online stream. Another case where you might see differences in programming would especially be things related to sports and concerts, where perhaps the radio station does not have the right to stream that online. So you might be able to listen to your football game on the radio, but you can't hear it on the online stream. Aggregators are sites that provide access to a large number of, in this case, radio stations. TuneIn and iHeart would be a couple of examples of those, where you open up the app and then you can choose what particular station or what particular stream you want to listen to. Choice-based sites allow listeners to be able to program their own quote-unquote unique stations. Services like Pandora and Spotify allow for this kind of thing. And then there's format-specific internet stations. These will play narrowly focused genres of music that provide rather hyper-niche programming a lot of times. These are going to be internet-only streams. You can't pick them up on a radio or on some other sort of device. Basically, the only way to be able to listen to it is to go online and listen to that stream. As far as monetizing online radio is concerned, there's three basic methods that are used out there. There's the selling of advertising space within the streaming content. You could also earn money by having your listeners subscribe to your feed. And then there's also allowing people to register and listen for free, and then they'll go and sell the email list. Also not on this list of three is the ability to have merchandising available, that the online stream would sell some swag for you to be able to pick up, because who doesn't love a t-shirt or a mug? Online stations have to pay royalties to performers, songwriters, and composers. The way that is calculated is different in the online world than it is for traditional radio. But there are licensing groups that allow for online streamers to be able to have the rights to be able to broadcast music from the various label companies. As far as online audience and content, about 80% of internet radio listeners will listen to the streaming programming of traditional AM and FM stations, while the rest listen to online-only stations. One thing that has become more and more popular is if there's a particular radio station that you enjoy, but for whatever reason are not able to get the signal of that particular station. Either you live too far away from the signal, or the signal itself tends to be rather weak. Say like you're listening to a low power FM station. Or you're listening to an AM station that doesn't have very far reach. A lot of people will use the online stream to be able to listen to that content. A lot of times as well, people that are working in an office will stream a station and be able to listen to that while they are working. Now, from audio, let's go to video. 3 different types of online video widely available. First off, commercial video sites. These are going to feature professionally produced full episodes of current or past TV series. So you've got, this is where your Hulu and your Netflix and your different broadcast network sites would come into play. Newer platforms such as Peacock and HBO Max and Disney Plus would also be in this particular realm. Video sharing sites where amateur producers will post their videos. This is where YouTube and Vimeo and LBRY come into play, where you could publish your video and make it available to the world. Now, some people will take these platforms and try to put up content that does not belong to them. Illegally published copyrighted material has been a problem over the years. The different aggregators of these sites, YouTube in particular, has tried really hard to be able to monitor what users are posting onto their channels. And if they see that it is something that the rights to that content is owned by somebody else, they will take action on that. Some celebrities use YouTube to help bolster their careers. There's a lot of well-known people that have taken on to the amateur sites and added their content there to try to create a following. And then there's life casting, the idea of broadcasting the details of one's life. Some people call it vlogs or video logs, video blogs, and that's how they use the platform. Third type of online video would be corporate video. And corporate video serves the particular needs of a company, a corporation, or an organization. Now, there's 3 main types of corporate video that you're possibly going to encounter. There's the training and orientation videos that are meant internally for their employees. There's sales and marketing videos, which is meant for prospective clients. And then there's public relations type videos, which are meant for the public at large. Now, within public relations, you may see three different types of videos here. There's the video news release, or the VNR. This is a recorded presentation of company news. It's used to promote a product or shape public opinion. So instead of putting out a what's known as a presser many times, instead of putting out a document, they might actually release an actual video. A company image video would be portraying the company in a positive light in one way or another, where the news release would generally be talking about a new product or service that the company is putting out, or trying to respond to something in particular within the culture, or talking about things that are happening within the company, a specific type of event. An image video would be just kind of an overall presentation of the company and talking about things like its products and services overall, the vision and mission of a particular company, and those sorts of things. Perhaps highlighting different ways that it's involved in the community, anything like that, that would kind of give more of a broad stroke image of what the company is all about and what it wants you to know about them. Third type of video would be communicating with shareholders. These would be things like highlights of annual meetings, various business meetings, and things like that. A fourth type of online video would be microcasting. This is where someone is transmitting a message to a small group of interested people. Some of the examples of this would be the recording of a wedding, or perhaps cameras that are set up to be able to monitor what's happening in a daycare setting, or even monitoring security cameras in your own home or business. Church services would also fit into this realm, where there is a rather small audience that would be interested in that particular video. Monetizing online video, the ways that we talked about with audio would come into play here. Subscriptions, definitely a way to monetize, where a viewer pays a fee in order to see the content. Advertising support, even though more people are watching online content, advertising revenue has been less than that of traditional sources, at least until recently, where we see more and more companies coming into the realm of providing video content online. More and more advertisers are starting to embrace the potentials that are there for sponsoring online content. But that notwithstanding, some of the concerns that are still out there about advertising online by many companies would include some of these things. The issue of supply and demand. There are thousands of websites that are looking for advertising dollars. Not just the popular ones that we know of, but there's the fringe sites that are out there. There's all sorts of different affiliate programs that different website creators can latch onto. There's just a lot of voices out there that are vying for a limited amount of advertising dollars. So it's kind of an advertiser's market in many ways, in terms of who they would align themselves with, but it's also an arena where the advertiser has to determine what the best use of their advertising dollar is going to be. So it is difficult for an advertiser to know how many people are actually seeing an ad online, depending on the various site that they may be looking to advertise with. There's not really a uniform standard to talk about things like online measurement of people consuming online content. Each site tends to measure those things in its own way, and to try to compare in an apples to apples sort of fashion can be a bit of a challenge. Also, advertisers have less control over where their advertising appears in other words, in what content their advertising appears in. That has become less and less of an issue as the different platforms that put advertising content on have gotten better at helping clients be able to meet their needs and to reach out to the target audiences that they want to reach out to, and also being conscious about the content of the programming itself. Not in the book, something to watch out for. In the past 10 years or so, proprietary tracking systems do help provide viewing data to advertisers, and many sites offer customizable settings for advertisers to reach target demographics, which is why advertising has been starting to grow on online platforms. Still not quite where it is quite where it is in terms of comparison to traditional media, but the gap is significantly shrinking. As of 2010, audiences are largely male and under the age of 30, but that is continuing to evolve as well. Generally, those that consume content online are doing okay in terms of income, but as technology becomes more affordable and internet service becomes a little more ubiquitous, we're starting to see more and more demographics that are participating in the online landscape. Average viewing time, 15 minutes a day, consuming online content. Of course, these are pre-pandemic numbers, so we can imagine that number has changed significantly. Women watching more full episodes of content, where men would be more likely to watch clips. We could go into why we think that is. That might be a good discussion to have amongst yourselves, why you think that might be the case, or if you think perhaps that has changed over the past few years as well. Some promise and problems with online video. More broadcasting outlets, companies, and government services are embracing online video. The ability to make its content available on demand and the possibility of more viewers being able to connect with its content is becoming more and more appealing to those that create content. Still some issues out there about how broadly to make that available. What the value of that content is. So you still have the battle between those that would be willing to pay so many dollars a month for access to content versus those that expect to receive content for free and then have to deal with advertisements within that content and whether they'll actually sit and watch that advertising, which is a concern for the advertisers as well. Also, user-generated video is becoming more and more popular as YouTube especially has become a very viable place for people to go and watch content, and videos that the average Joe puts out could become as popular as the stuff that's put out by the pros. A good local example of that, those of you that follow Rhett and Link, who are Harnett County raised, have made it very big on YouTube. Local broadcast stations fear that if people are watching programming online, that they'll stop watching content on their stations. But at the same time, some shows are now available from local broadcast websites as well, to the point where some stations have even developed their own apps for the smartphone, for smart TVs, especially to feature things like news content, documentaries, public service types of shows, and other enhanced content. Whether or not we will see a free distribution of broadcast stations through online streams, that one may take a while to get to that point. Because of different issues involving how money changes hands and revenue generation and that sort of thing. But there is some content available online from local broadcast stations as well as the broadcast networks. As far as cable companies, they fear that cord cutters will decrease their revenue, but at the same time, some cable companies offer their own streaming services to entice people to stick with their cable subscriptions. The future of online audio and video, more video will be available as more people are able to generate content and as more and more people are getting connected online. Right now in North Carolina, we're a little below the national average in terms of people that have access to high-speed internet at their homes. But the more and more that people are able to connect, the more and more that we will see this transition into more wide acceptance of the online space. More content will be easier to find because it's offered by several services, because search engines are getting better at being able to direct people to content, and of course the almighty algorithm trying to figure out what sort of content that you will enjoy based on content you've consumed in the past. And more content will come at a cost to viewers, whether it's through subscriptions to various services, which is actually kind of a concern for some of the cord cutters that are out there. Those that have abandoned their cable subscriptions to subscribe to a few services in an effort to save on their monthly cable bill are finding that, especially if they want to consume several different types of content from several distributors, as more of those distributors are putting out their own platforms and their own subscription models, it's very possible to wind up spending just as much on those subscriptions as you would to a cable television package, or perhaps even more. The other thing that could happen is more micro payments that you pay per instance of watching something, like the idea of renting a show or renting a movie for $1 or $2 or $3 for every time you watch that particular episode. That may be attractive to some, depending again on how much you consume and how much you're willing to pay. So there you go. There's the notes for Chapter 6. You know what to do at this point. Notes, study questions, fill them out, turn them in. Participate in the online discussion board on Blackboard. Make sure that you're following the rules for posting your thoughts on the discussion board. And continue to monitor Cougar Mail and Blackboard for any changes and updates for the class. And as always, I am available for questions, comments, concerns, and clarifications. So reach out, call, text, or email me with anything you need to know.